is a major one which we might see an end today, perhaps. Yeah. And there's sports as well as the recent concluded sugar strikes that is of concern to business. What exactly is your concern?
The concern is the signal that these strikes send out to South Africa and to our international partners. Mm-hmm. We understand that labor unions must be able to strike, that workers have that fundamental right. Mm-hmm. But it's a problem when their attitudes and their actions become lawless and when they prohibit other workers from going to work if they don't want to strike. Mm-hmm. It's about upholding the rule of law in South Africa.
Mm-hmm. Now, how does violence on strikes in general affect investor confidence in the country?
Sure. Well, remember that investors get a snapshot of what's happening in this country, mm-hmm. and violence is something that everybody sees across the world. You know, they don't have time to delve into the complexities of the matter and why people are angry and why people are more violent or less violent in South Africa. They want the hard facts, and the hard facts is strike activity is stopping a mine from producing. Mm-hmm. Why would you put your money into that mine?
So it would affect foreign direct investment immediately?
Absolutely, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I mean, sure, South Africa's foreign direct investment grew last year, mm-hmm. but there's a lead time to this as well. Investors looking into opening a new factory or a mine takes 3 to 4 years. Now, can you imagine you're from overseas, you're experiencing all these conditions, you see the lawlessness. How can you convince your shareholders to put their money in South Africa?
Now, the ratings agency Fitch has now revised South Africa's sovereign credit rating from stable to negative. What does that mean for the country, especially because they say it relates to the prolonged strikes in the platinum sector?
It's important to understand the role of Fitch in the whole process. Mm-hmm. They assess the credibility of South Africa's sovereign bonds, so government debt. Mm-hmm. If that is downgraded, the whole country suffers because it makes it more expensive to borrow money mm-hmm. for corporates, for small businesses, even for you and me, because the cost of credit increases. So when they say the outlook is downgraded from stable to negative, it means that the credit rating might be downgraded as well in future. They do it every 6 months. They might do it sooner if the conditions deteriorate. But it's a message to us to look at the fundamental problems and fix it as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Now, they also said that it will have an impact on economic growth outlook for the country.
Sure.
What does that mean?
Well, there's so much jargon in here. I'm not even sure I know what it means. But what it means is perception and reality interplay with economics. And if the perception is too bad, even if the economy is stable, it can already impact on how much money we're going to get, how attractive we are as an investment destination.
Now, there are some things that we can do as a country, and some, I would think even in business, that would prohibit certain actions to be taken. But do you think that we have these prohibitory solutions available to us not as us, but as business, to make sure that these strikes do not turn violent and they don't affect our
I think that's the whole point. That's the whole point, that the discussion needs to go to the root of the problem, that there's lawlessness and that the current system is more conducive to lawlessness. So we need to sit down and say, if you go on strike and every single time there's worker intimidation, there's violence, there's property damage, is the system still working? Is open-ended industrial action still working if so many other interests are infringed?
Now, you've also asked for Labour to act responsibly.
Sure.
What are you calling for?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of labour unions are responsible, and I'd like to say that we're not singling out any labour union, and we're not, talking of all of them, But I think the main thing is be responsible in the way you communicate with your members and the way you represent your members and the way you make sure that your members get the message straight that intimidation is not acceptable. You can't go intimidate anybody who wants to go and work. That's completely unacceptable.
Does that also talk to maybe our Labour Relations Act and how that speak to the workers?
Absolutely. That's exactly what the problem is. The Labour Relations Act needs to be looked, and we need to go and sit down and say, there's a problem. The problem is you can do, most of the horrible stuff that's happened. There's terrible stories out there, worker mutilation, murders we know of, property damage, a farm in the sugar belt was burned down. If the scope of the problem is this big, it raises a question of the constitutional validity of our strike and industrial relations network and system. Sorry.
This possible end to the platinum strike perhaps today, do you think that gives a positive signal to investors abroad?
Absolutely. I think it is, apologies, I think if it does conclude, it's still 50-50 whether they'll finalize. Definitely, we already saw that the equity prices for all the mining companies increased at the prospect of the finalization. So yes, it's definitely a good signal. But now we have 6 months to catch up. We lost a lot of production. And
it also make a turnaround for business, especially in the Rustenburg area.
We hope so. I mean, we know the community has been affected severely. There's been very bad effect on the social fabric of that community as well. And that's the point, you know, that individual workers, individual families suffer. We can look at this thing from a national perspective, an economic perspective. At the end of the day, it's individuals that count.
Pietman, thank you so much for your time and joining us here on AM News.
Sure. Thank you.
That was the SACCI Senior Policy Consultant, Pietman Roos, here in studio with us, breaking it down for us, the impact that these violent strikes have on our economy.